Tim Charles is a clean vocalist and violinist of the Australian extreme progressive metal band Obliviscaris. On the back of several international tours and their outstanding 2014 album Citadel, they have started a crowdfunding campaign to support the band. Tim, how are we?
I'm very good. Thank you very, very much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So let's get down into this. Talk a little bit about what this is and why you're doing it.
Well, essentially what we've done is we've set up to simplify it, we've set up what is essentially a monthly fan club. And we've combined it with the notion of patronage of the arts, which is neither of these things are new ideas, but the concept of doing them in an ongoing monthly fashion in the digital age with the amazing connectivity we have with fans is something that's actually never been done before. And it's even a twist on what Patreon has done before with other projects and artists that have used it. Because a lot of their stuff has been project-based, or there's been musicians on there using Patreon to fund occasional projects like music videos or things like that. But the notion of a band trying to essentially supplement their career income through a system like this is something that's brand new. Now, the way it came about was really just trying to address a huge problem we have in the industry, which is the reality that there's a lot of bands at our level, who are, working at a professional level as an international touring artist. We spent 6 of the last 10 months away touring across the world, and we've actually haven't been, paid a dollar to do that because, there's a lot of bands that until you become that big headliner, you don't get paid very much, and it's very expensive to tour around the world. And, there's a lot of bands that people love and that probably think are making a lot of money that aren't making anything. And a lot of bands break up because of it. A lot of people leave because of it. It was something that came up when CJ from Diet Murder, quit their band in December and was one of the first people to openly and honestly state that it was because of, how little money they're able to make. And, this is something that we've come up with to address that issue, and something we're really excited about as something that we think could have a big influence on the future of the music industry.
Now, what's been the reception like?
Yeah, well, overall the reception has been hugely positive. In the space of, just a couple of weeks since we launched, we've got $7,500 US per month in monthly subscriptions, which is just under $10,000 Australian. For us, that's an extra $120,000 in our annual budget, which is just unbelievable. And that's still going up every day. We've got people signing up every day, and the support from our fan base has been really incredible. There's definitely been some people who haven't understood what we're trying to do. Not everyone understands, the ways that this works or the reasons why. I've had, people bring up that they think maybe it's not a good look because we're doing all these big tours and people think we're making a lot of money. And, I've sort of responded saying, well, that's the whole reason why we need to do this. That's the whole reason we need to have this conversation. That's the whole reason I'm doing interviews like this, because for too long, people in the industry have tried to create this facade of bands as these special people to be looked up to that are these rich rock stars. And it's not the reality. The reality is that we're just ordinary guys, that we do what we do and we love what we do, and we want to keep doing what we do. But, the reality is that, you can't work for 6 months of the year and then not get paid $1 and still be expected to pay your rent in your bills and support your family. And so it's just not a viable, economic situation in the industry, and so that's what we're looking to change.
Now, a week ago, I interviewed Jim Gray from Caligula's Horse, and we talked a bit about this topic because they had made a Facebook post about it. And his basic thought was there was a lot of commentary coming from other bands and people who aren't necessarily fans, and that he thought it was really the fans' reaction that should matter. In that vein, do you think there's sort of more of a positive perspective from the fans, or is it both sides from the fans as well?
From our fans, it was definitely an overwhelming positive response because, they're the people who understand, what we're on about. They're the ones who understand that we're creating this music and we're doing everything we can to tour and perform for them, and that, you know, they can help be a part of that. So a lot of fans have been really excited about the prospect of us giving them an opportunity to get involved. Like, instead of just saying, oh, hey, it's really expensive to tour, we can't tour very often, we're saying, well, hey, we want to tour all the time, and here's a way, hey, you can make that happen, you know. Instead of worrying about, oh, you know, we can't do an album for 6 months because we've got to save up before we can pay for the studio time, it's like, well, here's a direct avenue for people to be able to get involved in that whole process. I mean, every dollar that a band ever makes comes directly from the fans anyways. We're just cutting out all the middlemen. You know, a lot of the time, you know, you might get $1 from a CD sales through JB Hi-Fi that people might have bought for $20, you know, which is like 5% of the gross income. Whereas for Patreon, we're getting 95% of the money that people are investing. And so, I mean, what we've found is that the response from the fans has been hugely positive, and it's more either been from people who don't appreciate our music or don't know anything about the band. So, I mean, I see comments from people who, you know, will say things like, you know, well, you know, if they can't make any money, maybe it's because nobody likes us. You know, I remember reading that. And it's like, well, you know, like, I mean, we launched this at the end of a hugely successful U.S. tour where, you know, a lot of fans were turning up night after night to see us play. I mean, I know that we have a lot of interest, but at the same time, you know, we're realistic. You know, we're not Lamb of God. You know, we're not Metallica. You know, we're not any of these, you know, huge bands or anywhere near that. You know, we're just a mid-level band playing kind of an obscure, weird type of progressive metal, and we have no, you know, dreams of riches. All we want to do is just keep doing what we love, and I think the people who appreciate what we do are the people that are really understanding it.
It's early days, but do you have any thoughts about maybe whether this is sort of a possible model, or, you know, whether this can actually be applied more widely?
Personally, I think this has the potential to revolutionize the music industry. I think that this is something that a lot of mid-level bands across the world could take up to transform their careers. I mean, for us, we have completely transformed the finances of our band in the space of the last month. I mean, just from putting this together and launching this. And that's with it only just getting started, you know? I mean, like, hopefully, you know, provided we do a good job with the content that we're providing and that our fans are happy, hopefully the interest that comes just keeps going up and up over time, you know, which is, you know, what we're aiming for. But, you know, I definitely think this is something that can work for other bands, because it's a model that can work for any artist or any band that has a significant fan base. Now, that doesn't have to be, you know, at that huge headline level. Like, you know, we've got 70,000 people on our Facebook page. I mean, that's a lot of people. And just from about 500 of them have signed up so far for our monthly membership. And that is going to net us $120,000 annually, just from those 500 people. So, I mean, you don't need all 70,000 people to get involved to make a difference. And so I think there's quite a lot of bands similar to us around the world who are well known internationally that I think this could apply to. And, you know, there's actually been a few bands that I know and that I'm friends with, or some that I'm not friends with, that have approached me about this idea because, you know, they want to look at it as something that maybe they can do themselves, you know, because they've got the same problems as us, and they're looking to see if this is a success because, you know, they're hoping that maybe it can be a success for them, and I think it will be.
Some of the other members of the band are in other projects, like, I know, Brendan, Benjamin and Dan are all in Ben Boyle's Viparsi. How does that work in relation to this process? You mean in regards to the Patreon, or in regards to finding time for the projects? Or? Well, sort of a bit of both, because if the idea is that they're it's going to provide sort of, you know, a minimum sort of wage, how does it work when they're not working on, you know, Obliviscaris?
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess the notion of the minimum wage was kind of an arbitrary thing we put on there just to kind of show that, you know, how kind of ridiculous it is that, just the notion of earning minimum wage is such a far-fetched notion for a band. It's not, what we're doing isn't a crowdfunding campaign. It's an ongoing thing, and any sort of goals that we have are more just arbitrary to ensure that, or I guess to give perspective to what we're aiming for. I mean, that's kind of why we place that goal on the page, to give people perspective to what that money would mean, like when we hit that marker. Just because people are involved in Obliviscaris doesn't mean they can't do other things. I mean, for Parsi has been something that's been in the works for 3, 4, 5 years, a long time. That they've just been doing a little bit here and there, and like with anything in life, people are entitled to do things off to the side as long as they can fulfill their commitments to the band. And so, as long as people are fulfilling their commitments to doing everything they can for Obliviscaris, then it's fine from me for other members to do other things, and I'm sure fans will just be happy to get other musical input from the musicians that they enjoy following.
Moving on to, it's funny that we're sort of burying the fact that you've been touring like crazy international, but you were you're touring, just for an example, you're touring later this year with Enslaved, which I think personally is an amazing combination. I wish I could be able to see that. Talk a little bit about what it's been like touring internationally.
Well, it's been absolutely incredible. I mean, in the last year, we've been to more countries than I am ever imagined that I ever would get to visit. I mean, a year ago we went to India. We played a festival in India to 12,000 people, which was absolutely insane. And then we did Japan and Hong Kong, and we played in Israel, which was incredible. We played some of the biggest festivals in the world, like Grasspop in Belgium, which was headlined by Kiss, and we played Hellfest and Resurrection Fest and Metal Days and Summer Breeze. We played like about a dozen of the biggest metal festivals in the world, which was an incredible way to introduce ourselves to the European scene. And then after that, we followed up with just a small thing of doing 63 shows around the world with Cradle of Filth, throughout Europe and the UK and North America, with an Australian tour, sandwiched in the small gap in between. So it's been an incredible thing from a personal perspective to see the world, to observe the cultures and meet all the people in these different countries. It's really helped me understand, I guess, different cultures a lot more, and even understand different political systems, and the reason why things are certain ways in different parts of the world. And and it's also just been an amazing thing to see the unified nature of music, and to go to all these different places. We played a show in Rome with Cradle of Filth, and Rome is just one of the most special places I've visited, with its all the incredible ancient history that's there. And the fans there, the amount of fans we had there was actually one of the best shows on the tour. And it just kind of blew my mind that I was there in Rome in Italy, wandering around the Colosseum, and then, playing this show with all these people that were saying that they'd been waiting 5 years to see us, and that we were their favorite band. And just that, it really blows your mind. I often try to remind myself how special a thing it is to be able to get that reaction from people all across the world, not to encourage any arrogance, but more to encourage just to value what we're getting to do, and to value and appreciate every single person that comes out to the shows to give us this opportunity to do what we love.
Now, I've seen you play live about 6 times, but they've all been smaller indoor venues, which I always felt really helped you capture a certain atmosphere. How does that translate into larger outdoor festivals that you've also played?
It's been really good. I mean, it takes a little bit of getting used to. I mean, the first first outdoor festivals we did was Soundwave Festival in 2015, and just the vast nature of the stages and the different atmosphere in the crowds definitely makes it a different performance. But, by the time we started doing the festivals in Europe, we really started to feel comfortable in those sorts of shows. And, it's quite an incredible thing, when we're playing at at Grasspop, which was the first major European festival we did, we played to what was almost a full tent. There was at least 5,000 people there, and at one stage, we had about 5,000 people when it was like literally 90% of the crowd clapping along in one section, and it's quite an incredible thing to have that number of people involved in the show. So while there are some benefits in getting the intimacy of a club show, there's definitely other benefits in just having that pure quantity of people involved in the performance that can be quite special as well.
Now, when I watch you guys play, I'm constantly concerned about your violin. Is that always in the back of your mind?
It's not. It should be, probably. It probably should be more. I try to put my violin down when I can so that I can be free to move around on stage, so I can be more free to engage with the audience and things like that. I always try to put it in a place where no one else is. Every now and then, it's happened a couple of times that I put it down on my violin stand and I haven't put it down properly and the violin's fallen down. I think that happened on one of the US shows, and I was walking forward and Matt sort of kicked me in the leg, and I was like wondering what he was doing, and I turned around, my violin had fallen over. But it is a very valuable instrument that is hugely important. Something that's the most important thing I own, really. But at the same time, when you're just trying to put everything into the show, you kind of forget about all of that stuff and just want to focus on trying to put on the best show possible.
Now, moving on to, I guess, other topics, are there any plans for new music? I know you've been incredibly busy, but has that either reached any sort of stage, or is that in your mind about when that'll actually happen?
Yeah, so we started writing some new material early last year, and we had a couple songs that were in the works, and then basically since last June we just haven't been home. I actually haven't been home for more than 8 weeks in a row at all since the end of May last year. So we haven't done much in the last 6 months, but we're going to be home for a few months now, and we're going to start writing the album probably in the next week or two. We'll probably start getting together to start writing. And then, we've got this big tour with Enslaved later in the year, and we're looking to maybe do some other tours as well. But, definitely a big focus is now, instead of just being touring as the sole focus, this year is definitely about trying to keep touring, but also make sure that over the course of this year we write the next record, so that sometimes maybe toward the end of the year we can go in and record a new album.
Now, what's that writing process like?
Long-winded. It really varies. Benji's a huge contributor. There'll be times where, he'll write 5 minutes of a song at home by himself and bring it in. There's other times where we'll jam and improvise 5 minutes of a song all together in one rehearsal, which is, how the second half of Pyrrhic was written. Actually, that's a good example, because the first half of Pyrrhic was primarily written by Benji, as far as the guitar riffs go. And then the second half was, I had an idea for a little bit of an outro, and then we jammed it, and it turned into this big build-up. And, in the space of, one rehearsal, we kind of have the template for the whole second half of that song. So, sometimes it can be a really long, drawn-out, methodical thing of sending riffs and recordings back and forth, and other times it can just be, jamming out ideas, having a riff and just getting together in a room and trying them out and seeing what comes out.
Zenoir, obviously a stage name. A few of your fellow compatriots, I'm not sure of the actual status of them, but they seem like stage names, like Brendan has Cygnus. What's the kind of status of them? And have you ever had an inclination to sort of try out a stage name?
When the band first started in 2003, the approach of the band was a lot more, black thrash with a bit of classical influence. And at that stage, the idea was, because we were coming from more a black metal perspective, to go with the black metal thing of having stage names. Now, by the time it got to the stage of actually, releasing our first release, which is the Aurora Veil in 2007, the music had changed a lot, and, we'd gotten a bit older and changed the way we viewed a few things, and basically, Zen, he likes having his artistic persona being a bit separate from his personal self. And then, Brendan had become a little bit attached to Cygnus as a stage name, but at the same time, he liked people actually knowing who he was as well. So he kind of kept that as like a middle name, so on the albums it's like Brendan Cygnus Brown, because some people will call him Cygnus. But I guess Zen's kind of the only person that has like a proper stage name, and everyone else is pretty comfortable just to be themselves.
If you exceed your targets by a meaningful amount, is there any plans, any thoughts about how that money might be spent or utilised, I guess?
Well, I mean, I guess, like, as with any individual, people don't grow up hoping that one day maybe they might make minimum wage. So, I mean, what I would love is that hopefully one day we can earn more than that. I mean, at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're investing in the band and in our career in a way that benefits the fans. So I think that obviously the more money that comes through the band, it's easier for us to buy high quality gear, which enables us to put on a better quality show, which enables us to create better quality albums. It means there's more money to spend in the recording studio, there's more money to spend on mixing and mastering, on artwork, on T-shirt designs. There's more money to make sure that we can tour more regularly. There are some places in the world that it's really not possible to make much money, but that we would love to go anyway. A lot of Asia is like that, because some of the currencies aren't very strong. So to tour there, it's difficult to make much money or get paid much. But if we have more money, I mean, we'd love to invest that money to be able to do some of those tours. So I mean, it's that fine balance between. Like I said, I mean, we'd love to be able to eventually, have an income that is beyond minimum wage, like everyone in society aspires to do. But at the same time, we definitely plan on balancing that to make sure that we're really investing in our career, so that it's clear that it's not just a case of, pocketing money and then putting out this really album with poor production because you just put the money in your pocket and you haven't invested in the band. So, I mean, the main priority will be investing the money in the band's career. And then, and that'll be the first thing even now. I mean, like, the reality is that, we aren't going to be able to pay out all the money to the individual straight away, because, we need money now to go towards flights to the Enslaved tour and things like that. And, so we prioritize all the bands first, and then if there's money left over, which over time there will start to be, that's when we can start to, pay ourselves a bit, and then that will allow us the ability to not work as much with other jobs when we're back home, which means that we'll be able to, write and record quicker so that we can get the album out quicker and things like that.
That sounds really exciting. I mean, hopefully, this is going to be really interesting to see how this goes, because as you were saying, you're one of the first bands to basically do this, and it's going to be incredibly fascinating to see.
Well, like I said, man, I want to start a revolution. That's all I ask for. Not too much. I just want to change the music industry. I mean, that's the way we're approaching this. That it's not just about Obliviscaris. It's about the industry, and it's about changing with the times. Some of the old ways, you can still earn money, but not as much as you used to. And there's this black hole of revenue that has to be addressed, because there's so many bands. It's not just us. There are so many bands in exactly the same position as us. We're just, one of the, the first ones to come out and say, this is the reality. This is a way to address it. And I'm really excited to be involved in this, and I'm excited that our fans are getting on board and supporting it, and I'm excited to see what happens from here on in. But I'm really confident this is something that's going to be doing some special things, for the industry ongoing. And like I said, very excited to be a part of it.
Now, one more question before I let you go. You have, I guess you would say, atypical hair for someone in a metal band. It's very full, very lush, I would say. What do you do to achieve that?
I do nothing really.
Just natural.
Yeah. I don't have my hair cut often enough, and when we're on tour, living on a bus, you don't get to shower or wash your hair as much as you might like, and it's just the way it comes out, basically.
Oh, very cool. Now, Obliviscaris, off the back of and ongoing into several international tours. Check out their crowdfunding campaign. Tim, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me and all your support.